Hi, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome to Immigration Chat with me, Attorney Lilian Chukura of Lily Legal, where we help our clients get status for themselves and for their families using the U.S. immigration law system. So, today we are going to be talking about work visas. If you joined me last week, you know we talked all about the work visas that are temporary, right? That the ones that don't lead to a green card. So this week we are going to be talking about the work visas that lead to a green card and eventually citizenship. So that's what this live is going to be dedicated to, the work visas that lead to a green card and eventually citizenship. So, if you are interested in that, then stay tuned. We're going to get really deep into it. There are 5 types of work visas that lead to permanent residency in the US, and we're going to go over them. And if you qualify for any of them or want to um, basically meet with me and see what you qualify for, go ahead, and all my contact information will be in the description to this video. And I would be more than happy to talk to you about it. Now, to start, I do want to make it clear I am talking about only work visas that lead to a green card. Last week was all about work visas that do not lead to a green card. So if you are looking for a temporary work visa, then watch my video from last week where we went over all the different types of work visas that are temporary. Okay. You're coming here to work and then you're planning on leaving the US once you're done with that work or once your visa is over. But today, we're talking about the visas where you don't have to leave, right? The visas that lead to you being able to get a green card. That's what we're going to be covering. And we're going to basically go over what they are, what the requirements are, if you need an employer, or if you can do it on your own. Remember, certain types of visas require you to have an employer file for you. And then there's other types that do not. So we're going to be talking about those two types of work visas and see which one could potentially apply to you. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I have gotten all your comments and questions about the temporary work visa. So I'm looking forward to your questions about the permanent work visas. Okay. So the first one we're going to go over is called EB1, is basically employment based preference category 1. Okay. And that in that types of visa, you have 3 ways to qualify. Okay. So each type of visa has its own qualification requirements. So for this one, there's 3 ways that you can qualify. The first one is that you show that you have extraordinary ability in science, arts, education, business, athletics, right? And you can show this through your national or international acclaim. You are well known in this thing that you do. So, and then there's categories, right? There's criteria for extraordinary ability. And if you meet 3 out of 10 of those, hey, you have a shot at getting a green card through your extraordinary ability. Now, if you don't meet any of those 3 requirements, but you have a one time achievement that's like world renowned. For example, you win an Olympic medal, you have won an Oscar, you are a Pulitzer winning author, right? Nobel Peace Prize winner. So, Nobel Prize winner in general, all of those lead to you being able to then um, get a work visa. And these are permanent. Okay. And the good thing about this type of visa is under extraordinary ability, you do not need an employer. to be able to apply. Okay. So for extraordinary ability, no employer is required. Now, the second way that you can qualify is if you are an outstanding professor or a researcher. Right? But this particular category requires you to have an employer. Right? So it's not just that you are an outstanding professor or researcher, but there's also a US company, business, school, research institute that's willing to file for you to get this type of visa. So they will do a labor certification for you. Well, they will do the application for you. This again does not require labor certification. Your abilities, right? The fact that you are outstanding and you can show that you are outstanding is enough. So it is so good. If you are a researcher or a professor and you have a university or a research institute that's looking to hire you, and you're able to again meet the criterias, which is 2 out of 6 of the criterias, then you are able to apply for this work visa. Again, you must have at least 3 years experience in teaching or research. Okay, 3 years, at least 3 years of experience. And you must be entering the US to pursue a or tenure track teaching or comparable research position. Okay, so you're not just coming here to be an adjunct professor, you're coming here and you're on a tenure track the second you get here, or you're already being offered tenure when you get here. So if you are a professor, you know what those terms mean. You know how coveted those tenure positions are. So that's why that is a requirement there. If you are into research, right, on the research end of it, you still need to show that the position you're coming for is not just an entry level research position, right? You want to be up there when it comes to the research. So something similar to a tenureship. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Um, okay, so that's the first and second ways to get the EB1 visa. The third way is for certain multinational managers and executives. So if you watched my last video, you know I talked about the L1 visa, where if there's a multinational company that's moving a manager or an employee from their company outside of the US to their office in the US, they could apply for an L1, which is a more temporary option. This one is for a more permanent option. Again, all of EB1 do not require a labor certification. That's why this is for people that are higher ups. This is not for, these are for managers and executives. These are not for entry level employees or employees without that type of standing in the company. So the higher your standing is in the company, the more likely you are to be able to get this. So again, you need that multinational company, right? It's not just you as an individual applying, it's a multinational company applying for you to come and work in a managerial or executive capacity. So if you, you know, if you are applying to work, if you were offered a position, for example, to be the CEO of $1 million company, that's more in line with this than if you were offered a position, you know, a supervisorial role position for the same company. Your chances are lower because, again, you have to be an executive or a manager. Okay. Again, no labor certification required. As long as you meet the requirements, right? As long as you meet the criteria, you can get the visa, and then you're able, once you're approved for the visa, you're then able to apply for a green card. Okay, so it's a two-step process. The first step, the company applies for you. In the second step, you then are able to apply for a green card. And these can be applied for either outside of the US or in the US, but you can only apply for it in the US if you are still in a current valid status. So you have to be in a valid status until you get your green card. So keep that in mind as you're planning, right? Some people will go from H1B to one of these more permanent positions. Because your H1B may last for 6 years, you're able to start with this process and apply for your actual green card while you're still on H1B status. So just know you have those options. And all I really want to offer to you guys is options with these types of visas. Okay, so those are the EB1 visas. They are, again, extraordinary ability, outstanding professors and researchers, and then certain multinational managers or executives can get these types of visas. Now, let's go into the EB2. This is a category that more people will fit under than the EB1, just because it's not as it doesn't require you to be like the top of your field, like the EB1 category does. The EB1 category reminds me of the O1 visas that we talked about last week. Those are for, the top of your field that you're getting that visa. But the EB2, it's a step down. It's for people that have advanced degrees, right? People that have exceptional ability, not extraordinary, exceptional ability in science, arts, or business. And by exceptional, they mean a degree of expertise, right? That's above the ordinary. So it's not just you're good at business, is that you're really like you're higher than most people when it comes to your business acumen. So keep that in mind when they say exceptional ability. It doesn't mean that you are the top of your field in business or that you are the top of your field in science, but it does mean that you have to show an expertise that's significantly above the ordinary. Okay. And then the last one is the national interest waiver. So let's go to advanced degrees. Advanced degrees, you're looking at, doctoral, if you have a doctorate degree, the higher your degree, the better your chances. Okay. If you have a degree from outside of the US, you need to make sure that it actually translates and you are getting the equivalency done before you start the process. Okay. So, and you must meet all the requirements of a label certification. So this is another difference between this and the EB1 category. This requires a labor certification. Okay. So if you have an advanced degree and you're applying and your employer is applying for you based on the EB2 category, specifically your advanced degree, they have to do a labor certification for you. Okay. And once that is approved and the visa is approved, then you can apply for a green card. So it is multiple steps, an additional step than the EB1 categories. Okay. And like I said, exceptional abilities, you have to meet certain criteria in order to meet that. So, for example, if you can document that you have at least 10 years of full time experience in the occupation that you're about to go, that you're applying for, and it requires you to have an employer. Okay. It requires you to have an employer. It is not something you can apply for on your own. Okay. An employer wants you, right, for this position. They do a labor certification to say that you are the person for this position. And Once that's approved, you can apply for a green card, but not beforehand. The national interest waiver is a is different, right, from the other two. The other two requires you to have an employer. The national interest waiver doesn't. It doesn't require you to have an employer, and it doesn't require you an employer to do a labor certification for you. Now, if you meet this requirement of the national interest waiver, that means you can apply on your own based on your own qualifications. But here's the thing with this: you are basically telling the US government that your skills, what you do, is so important to the national interest of the United States that they should not require you to have an employer, or they should not require your employer to do a labor certification. So it is a higher standard than if you meet all the other ones and you have an employer that meets the labor certification requirements, and that you meet the requirements of, let's say, an advanced degree or an exceptional ability. Just keep in mind, the things that they're looking for a national interest waiver is that whatever it is that you're proposing to do in the US with your um whatever field you're working on, that it has substantial merits and national importance. So it's not just, oh, this is an important research field, but you can tie that um research to a national issue, or show that it is important to the nation as a whole. Okay. And then you also have to show that you are well positioned to advance the proposed endeavor. Okay. So you have this idea. Are you the best person to execute this? Right. That's what they're looking for there. That you are the best person. You are best positioned to actually fulfill whatever that proposed endeavor is. So you have to show that as well. And you have to show that it would be beneficial to the United States government and the United States people to waive the requirement of a job offer and a labor certification. So, those are the three things you have to show in order to waive the job offer and the labor certification under the national interest waiver. Now, for all these three things, the EB2, the EB1, if you qualify, not only can you apply for a green card, your spouse can also qualify, and your children under 21 can also qualify. So it's not just, if you're married with children, your spouse can get a green card, and your unmarried children that are under 21 can also benefit and get a green card. If you have children that are over 21, you have to wait till you get your green card to be able to file for them. If you have children that are married, you have to wait till you become a citizen before you can file for them. Okay? So this applies to all of the visa types that I will be talking about today. Okay? And as always, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'm talking about all about the immigrant visa options for work visas. So the work visas that lead to a green card. All right. So the third preference, the EB3, is for skilled workers. So you must be able to demonstrate that you possess at least 2 years of job experience, education, training, whatever is actually required for the type of job that you are applying for, right? That you have a post secondary education. Okay. Um, and you must be performing work for which qualified workers are not available in the US. So, what does this actually mean? It means that not only do you meet all the requirements, which is at least 2 years of job experience and all of that, but that the labor certification is required, an employer is required, and the job that they're offering you has to be permanent and full time. Okay. If they are offering you seasonal work, part time, unfortunately, that would not work for these categories. Okay. It needs to be a full time job, and you have to meet the labor certification requirements. And that's where they say you must be performing work that there's no qualified U.S. US workers for. So that's part of the labor certification. Your employer is basically putting a job, putting in, like on Indeed, hey, we have this position, see if they get people that want to apply for them, interview them, compare them to you, and see if you are still the best candidate for the job. And if you are, then there's no qualified um, US worker that can fill that position. So it is very important that when you're speaking to a lawyer, that it's not just you speaking to the lawyer, that the employer is taking the initiative, because the employer is the petitioner, right? The employer is the one that has to do the labor certification, has to do the job postings, have to do all those things that are required to even get the visa application out. So they have to be involved from day one and make sure that the requirements are something that they are willing to do. And I've seen people, spend the time, talk to a lawyer, think this is a great opportunity for them, and then they talk to their employer, and their employer is not on board. So that's something to really talk to your employer about. If you are offered a position, a full time position with a US employer, and you are outside of the US or you don't have status, you should be talking to them about whether they're willing to file a work um, visa for you, whether it's a temporary one, like the ones we talked about last week, or a more permanent one, like the ones we're talking about this week. So, for the EB3 category, again, there's skilled workers. The next one is professionals, right? For the professional category, you must demonstrate that you possess a US bachelor's degree or a foreign equivalent, right? So for any foreign degrees, you want to be doing the equivalency certification, so that you can actually show that this is equivalent to a US bachelor's degree. Okay. And you have to show that that bachelor's degree that you have is actually required for the field that you're trying to go into. Okay. So let's say you're trying to go into a field that requires um, a biology degree, or at least something in the sciences, but you have a liberal arts degree. So that's not going to work. So whatever your degree is in, it has to match what's required for entry into your occupation that you're trying to work for in the US. Okay. Your employer has to do a labor certification. And again, it has to be a permanent job offer, and it has to be full time. Okay. And the thing about this too is, if there's certain visas that if you don't have the proper degree or education, you can mix education and experience. This is not one of them. You cannot mix experience and education. It has to be you have this bachelor's degree in this field that's required for your occupation. Okay. You cannot mix a high school degree with 5 years of experience or 10 years of experience to make up for the fact that you don't have the bachelor's degree. It doesn't work that way. So that's something to really keep in mind if you want to, or if you have an employer that wants to file for you, is paying attention to the type of work that you're going to be doing and the degrees that are required for entry into that type of field. And then the final one is the unskilled worker or other workers. So you must show the ability to perform unskilled labor, requiring less than 2 years training or experience, that is not of a temporary or seasonal nature. Okay. So whatever it is that you're doing, one, you have to show that you can actually do it, right? Whatever the position is, you have to show that you qualify for it. And then two, that you, right, not only do you qualify for it, but it has to be a permanent full-time job. It cannot be a temporary employment. So last week we talked about the temporary agricultural workers that would come just, during the summer or spring summer season for harvest or for planting or whatever it is. Those are seasonal workers. But your whatever position it is, even though it's unskilled, you still must um it must be a permanent full-time position. You're not getting a green card for a seasonal position. So keep that in mind. And your employer still has to do the labor certification, which basically says we don't have any US qualified workers that can fill this position. So that's really the trick here, right? Is there US qualified workers that can fill this position? So I've had people talk about, ask if a housekeeper but at the end of the day, what is the housekeeper doing that you can't find someone in the US that can fill that position, right? Is it, a special type of housekeeping? So it really matters what the actual job duties are when you're talking about unskilled labor. So unskilled workers. So really, really think about that. Um, Again, this is a great opportunity, but you have to meet the requirements. It's not something that, it's something that's out there and it's available, but for you to actually qualify and be able to get this type of visa, you have to show, right? It's not just talking about, oh, well, there's these type of things. No, you have to actually show that you qualify. Not only does the employer qualify, but you, the employee, also qualifies. Okay, so that's something to really keep in mind there. And then the fourth category, which is the EB4 preference category, is it has a lot in there. So religious workers, so priests, nuns, pastors can fit into this category. Certain broadcasters, certain members of NATO, their employees, their family members, members of the U.S. Armed Forces that are not already um, green card holders or U.S. citizens can also apply under this. Um, so there's a lot of people that can apply under this. Okay, and certain physicians licensed and practicing medicine in the US as of January 9, 1978 can also apply under this. So it is one of those catch-all categories that has so many different things in them. But the thing to keep in mind is depending on what it is, you are going to need an employer, right? So, religious workers, you need a church or a congregation that's willing to have you come in and work there as a religious worker. So they are willing to put in the application for you and go through the process of being approved to have you there. Okay, broadcasters, the same thing. You have to meet the requirements, but this is a more of a catch-all category for special immigrants. That's really what it's for. It's special immigrants, and you have to fit into one of these categories to be considered a special immigrant. Okay, again, that does not mean that, when they say special, it doesn't mean like, oh, you're a special person. It just means that these are specific types of visas that are reserved for specific types of people. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's not about you as an individual not being special. It's more of you not fitting into one of these categories that they have there. And again, these ones are very specific. Some of them do not require labor certification, and some of them do. So, depending on what you qualify for, we can definitely talk more in details about those. Now, the last one, the EB5, is my favorite. Okay, I have preferences, and this is one of them. This is the millionaire visa that people talk about. So the EB5 is for investors, right? It's for immigrant investors that want to invest in the US, want to invest in a business in the US. Um, Unlike the E2 and E1 visa that's only for specific countries, this visa, right, the EB5 is for anyone, right? Anyone that has enough money to invest into the US um, in this level would be able to apply for a visa. Okay, so let's talk about what this actually means. So there's the investors that can invest up to $500,000 if you are investing in a regional center that is considered, lower income. If you are investing in Manhattan, unfortunately, you will most likely fall into the $1 million and above investments. But if you are in these regional centers, you may be able to do the lower end, the 500,000. Unlike the E1, E2 visas, this actually has a number. Okay, it's not substantial investment. There is a number that you need to meet. And if you have that much money and you want to invest it into the US and use that as a way for you and your spouse and or your children that are unmarried and are under 21 to get a green card in the US, then that's something to explore, because that visa is specifically for people that can afford it. You have to show that you have the money to invest. Um, wherever you're investing, you have to show that you have the money. Whatever you're investing in, whatever business you're investing in, your money, your investment has to create at least 10 jobs. Okay, your investment has to at least create 10 jobs. So it's not just, oh, okay, let me use this money and buy properties, unless, right? Unless the property, you know, part of the whole thing is that it's going to lead to 10 people being employed and you figuring out how that is actually going to work, um, then go ahead. That may be your path, but you have to show, right? That's the main thing. You have to show that you are creating these jobs as a result of you being able to invest into that business or start a business. Now, people have been getting into trouble. People have been getting into trouble with this visa because the US government will come back and look to see if you created 10 jobs. Especially people that invest in like um a resort or a business that's already ongoing. You have to show that from when you invested, that money you invested led to 10 jobs. Not just that the business added 10 jobs. So if the business had 10 investors that are all applying for a visa, right? And they all invest in the business, they all get the visa. That means 10, each person needs to have 10 employees that were added to the business. Okay, so you can't just invest in an existing business that already has 10 employees. You are adding 10 employees. So every single investor, not family member, we're not talking about your spouse and your children, we're talking about if the people that are investing into the business in order to get a visa have to show that their investment led to employment for US workers. And you have to be able to document that. So that's where people have been getting into trouble with the investor visas But that's something you can avoid, okay, by just documenting how your investment led to employment, and of course documenting how many employees you had before and after your investment. And you're not expected to hire all 10 employees at once, but you are, when there is a time frame that you have to have employed all 10 people. So remember that. That is the caveat to the investment portion. Remember, the EB1 and EB2, the temporary visas, do not have this requirement. Okay, you can just invest in a business here, and you can be, starting a business, investing in the business, and you are the employee, right? The only person working in the business, and it will still, you would still be able to get that visa because of your substantial investment. But for the investor visa that leads to a green card, no, there's more requirements. There's more you have to do. That's basically the theme of today, is when you want a more permanent visa, what you're required to show to the US government is going to be more than what a temporary visa may require. So just keep that in mind. You can apply for certain temporary visas, and later on apply for these more permanent options. Okay. You are not limited. Just because you have a temporary visa doesn't mean you can't also later on apply for a permanent one. Okay. So, like I said before, I have people that start with an H-1B visa, and then later on, their employers like, we really like this person, let's keep them on longer. And that leads to them being able to get a green card. So, it is so important that you pay attention to this, and, you know, really think about the EB3 option that has that unskilled worker criteria. Most people, if the employer meets the labor certification and all of that, you're more likely to be able to qualify for that than the other positions. But the more degrees you have, the more experience you have in your field, the more options are available to you. So just keep that in mind. And just know that, again, the more experience, the more education you have in a specific field, especially if that's the same field you're going to be working on when you come to the US, the better your chances are at getting one of these visas, whether the temporary or the permanent. Okay. So that is all I have for you today. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I am so excited to be having this conversation with you all, because this is something that, again, I am very passionate about. I've been talking to people outside of, Facebook about, and now I get to share this knowledge with you all, and I'm just really thrilled to be doing that. Now, if you like this video, please go ahead and hit the like button. If you know someone that needs to hear this, or if you think that someone in your community may appreciate this video, go ahead and share it with them. And if you are watching in a place where you can subscribe, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. As always, I am Lilian Chukura. I am the owner of Lily Legal, where we do immigration law, and we do it really well. And I will be seeing you next week, Friday, for more Immigration Live. Until then, bye for now.